Welcome to What the Bible Says, a Lugnuts podcast group production.
Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 20 of What the Bible Says, recorded on July 23rd, 2023. My name is Nick, and I have returned. To my right, Kenneth Devon Kramer the second.
Hello.
Across from me would normally sit Aiden, but Aiden is at a birthday party / lunch thing. I don't actually know what it is. Anyways, It's Zeke Jones.
Hi, I'm the former Nick.
Reverend Zeke Jones. Sorry.
Reverend Zeke Jones.
We are missing Joe. We do want to wish Joe a very, it's not very belated, it's just belated.
Yeah.
Belated 22nd birthday.
Yeah,
That was
Joe.
yesterday, so.
Happy
Woo-woo.
birthday to Joe. Round of applause.
And to my left sits the one and only.
The Honorable Steve.
Sits the whatever.
Stephen Dale Cox.
All right, so if Zeke is a reverend, is he brave and clean also? Because brave, clean, and a reverend all go together.
I think so.
Sure.
I had bad jokes all this morning. They're just keep on coming. Keep on coming.
all right.
Yes,
With that,
I've been
it's yours,
without
Steve.
my wife
It's yours.
for almost 48 hours, so
Who knows?
it is what it is. All right, so we're going to go a little lighter today. We're going to have some pretty deep dives here lately. It doesn't mean it's not as important of a topic. A little more on a practical side, maybe. And I'll just start by reading an article that came up. It says, one of the hallmark characteristics of being a Christian is compassion. Jesus was the epitome of acting in a way that helped and cared for others. We are called to walk in his footsteps. Simple enough, or is it? In our world, there are a myriad of causes we can be kind-hearted towards. These include the poor, the undereducated, the abused, the oppressed, the homeless, the disabled, the unborn. Then there's the wider scope of life, endangered species, abused and homeless animals, and the environment. What about the social and political issues that rage across our media 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Where do we invest our God-honoring, where do we invest our time, effort, and resources to be truly God-honoring followers? All right, so just initially, what are you thinking about that topic? What's some of your just initial thoughts? And we're going to figure out, what does the Bible have to say about charitable giving?
I think the initial thought that just comes to my head is just that it is hard to balance things sometimes in life. And I think that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people struggle with. I know myself, I struggle with it, especially during school when I have 5 classes with 5 different essays at 5 different, it's like, there's just like, what on earth? And I think that's one of the hardest things, is to know how to divvy up time and to remember, like, the compassion that you mentioned, to remember those things are still prevalent even in when I'm writing those many essays or whatever that looks like.
Well, I think you're right, Nick. The busyness of life can kind of get in the way of some of that. We need to remember that there are other people out there who are also busy and might need help, and that just because we are feeling stress or some strain due to stuff in our life doesn't mean that we can't make time for other people, right?
I think that's why 2020 just felt so off. It's because normally our lives are super, super busy. 2020 just no one was busy at all, which is why it felt awkward, because we had nothing to do. We had nothing to be busy about.
Yeah.
There was nothing. Yeah, we couldn't go anywhere. Well, I mean, you could, but you couldn't.
Right.
So that's kind of why, to me, that's what kind of how it felt off. And why it's like, don't really talk about 2020 because, there was no busyness.
I think, honestly, sometimes it feels like we skipped straight from 2019 to 2021.
Wait, there was a year in there?
Yeah.
Right.
So here's some general thoughts to begin with, then we're going to take a look at the Bible. It says this: Jesus did not build a poverty elimination system, but he did build a poverty management system. You're always going to have the poor. Okay, so that whole idea of we're going to somehow feed the world is not even practical. Okay, so here's 2 just general principles I think our listeners can grab onto, and then we're going to go into the Bible for some more specifics. Principle number 1: His instruction was to be generous and kind to the less fortunate. Okay, that's just a general big picture. And the second one I think is really important is this. His provisions gave those less fortunate opportunities to help themselves. Okay, let's think about that. I mean, I think we've all heard the phrase, don't give a handout, you give a what? A hand up. A hand up. And so two principles here that we are to be generous and we are to be kind, but just giving people stuff isn't maybe in their best interest. Okay, so what does the Bible say? Let's have some guidelines. So let's take a look at Proverbs chapter 3. We've got 6 different verses. We're not going to spend a lot. Again, this is like, you talk about, a place we could go for like ever. This is a topic. But I think, what happened was, the reason this even came to my mind is this past week, my son, Jeremy, and Proverbs 3, 27 and 28. And my grandson, Andrew, went to Chicago to Wrigley Field to go to a Cubs baseball game. And outside Cubs Wrigley Field was guys just begging. And Jeremy was there, and they're getting ready to go get something to eat. He says, hey, man, can you go get me a hamburger or a cheeseburger? And Jeremy got him a cheeseburger. And then the one I talked to Nick and Kenny about before I came in, the guy down at a establishment in Plymouth sits outside with a board, and he sits there and he goes, hey, I'm just an old fart just looking for change so I can buy a beer. And he's at least honest about the whole thing. I'm almost inclined to give him money.
Right.
So anyway, but the point is that when you see that, there's that awkwardness of like, do I help? Do I not help? What would be some good biblical, direction or guidance? Because we should be generous as Christians, but we should just be giving our money away to everybody. All right. So here's Proverbs 3. I'd be interested to see what these say in you guys' versions. 3, 27 and 28. Who'd like to read that one?
We'll just start here and go this way.
Okay.
How about that? Yep. Okay. When it is in your power, don't withhold good from the one to whom it belongs. Don't say to your neighbor, go away, come back later, I'll give it tomorrow, when it is there with you.
Kenny, why don't you read yours too? I want to hear, because this is a key, kind of like going to set the tone for everything else here. Nick, what was that? That was the...
We all have CSB in here.
You all have
CSB.
All right,
Yep.
all right. So mine says this: do not withhold good from those who deserve it. Okay, what did you guys say?
From whom it belongs.
Right. The point here is, in the King James, it says, to those who it is due. So the question that you have to say is, who deserves help? Okay? Because that's what the passage is saying. Let's read it again. Do not withhold good from those who deserve it. So you now have to say, well, who is deserving of the good? Especially when it's in your power to act. Verse 28, don't say, come back later, I'll give it to you tomorrow, because again, we talked about this morning in the message this morning, that's Satan's main tactic. You always have tomorrow. Right? So that's the principle here is, how do we figure out who deserves help? All right, so let's stop right there and say, how do you guys figure out who deserves help? Not a right or wrong answer. Just being gut honest, just being organic here, because this is again the tension that we. I mean, sometimes don't you have the tension when you go by Walmart and they got the Salvation Army guy out there ringing the bell? And you go, all right, I guess I got to put a buck in or whatever. It's kind of like if you walk by, like you're going to get struck by lightning or God's watching you. So just when you see that, how do I determine that? Yeah, that's a person I should help, or nah, I don't know. And then we're going to take a look at some specifics on who that might be.
Yeah, so I just want to say shout out, actually. Teen Pact, great organization, look into it, but when I went this year, every year has a topic, right, that we talk about. And alumni that go to this organization, it's like a week-long class it's a faith-based government kind of class. It's really cool, look into it. Anyway, but alumni have to write an essay on a certain topic, and this year's topic was homelessness. So I did a lot of research. I actually wrote 2 essays, one on the government's role and one on the church's role in helping homeless people. And something that kind of stood out to me is that sometimes you don't know if they're going to take that money and buy food for their family or take that money and go buy drugs, right? You just don't know. So I think something that we can maybe do more actively is when you see people, help them, obviously, but go find good organizations that are faith-based that you know are helping people, and go spend time, go donate money, or even better, just find people that need help that are making an active change. Maybe they have struggled with addiction, but they're trying to get into some program, or they are in some program. Find people like that who are actively trying to make a difference in their lives, because that money is less likely to go towards something bad like alcohol, drugs, etc.
Okay, good. Anybody else? That's pretty, comprehensive answer there, actually. And
Yeah.
you guys going to add to that?
I think the one thing that comes to my mind specifically is I always hear when people are saying, "Oh, well, like, I could give to them, but like Zeke said, they're just going to spend it on drugs. They're just going to spend it on stuff." And I hear people, the solution to that is, "Well, I'll go buy you food." And if they're like, "Well, I don't want food," then it's like, "Okay, well then I'm not going to buy anything for you." That's a hard thing for me because not the food thing. The hard thing for me is the idea that if someone says they are in need, I'm supposed to judge whether or not they are actually in need. Like, I am not a judge. In fact, I'm a very poor judge. God says that a lot in throughout the whole Bible. But I think that's a problem, and I think if you're giving generously, it's a hard thing because one, you obviously don't want to fuel an addiction. You don't want to fuel something that is just causing someone to spiral down in their life and stray further from God. But I'm also not here to judge you. I'm not here to say, well, I don't know, you might be a drug addict. I don't think I can give you $20. Sorry, I don't think I can. You just look a little too sketchy for me. It's like that's a very fine line to walk, and it's a hard one. I mean, it's incredibly hard. But I think it's the idea of giving generously. For me is just, and the other thing too is you can pray for that money you give them like crazy. I mean, you give that to them. You may never see that person again, but you can just pray that money would have an effect in their life that would draw them closer to God, whether that be, I guess, good or bad. So.
Right. Yep. No, I agree. Sometimes, I have a tendency to lean more on the grace side, and that's why some people say. Now, again, if you know it's being used poorly, then you say, okay, I'm not going to give there. But to me, that's what I often tell people. Well, how do you know it's not being spent on whatever? And the answer is, listen, that's not my pile. My pile is to be a wise steward of the money God's given me, but in the grand scheme of things, that's God's going to take care of that. And so anyway, so again, you're right. It's not an easy one to do that. So let's take a look. The Bible does give us some specifics as far as there are definite people that we should be taking care of. James chapter 1, verse 27. And again, these are no-brainers, but it's just a reminder of, say, okay, well, who should we be taking care of? Who would like to say, right, Kenny? You want to go ahead and Kenny, you want to read that for me, please?
Pure and undefiled religion before God the Father is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress and keep them and to keep oneself unsustained from the world.
Right. Okay. And so very specifically, it says who? Orphans and widows. If that's why in our ministry, we want to make sure our widows are being taken care of. And the BIC guys went out and did a marvelous job in a yard. And you say, why'd you guys do that? Well, part of the reason was, and it's not that the widow, we won't say any names here, was incapable. She could have gone out and hired it done. But anyway, so that was the whole idea of she was a widow who needs, a special care. Last night I got a chance to take my mother-in-law to the show's production that Addie was in, and it was kind of fun. I didn't think it was going to be a drag. It was a date with my mother-in-law, who's a widow, and she bought Dairy Queen afterwards. Awesome.
There you go.
Awesome. I didn't know that. I didn't know that ahead of time. I did not know ahead of time. So
Okay.
Anyway, so let's just put that out
No
for
ill
the
intent.
record.
You had no ill intent. In your heart.
taking advantage of the widows. I'll take you anywhere for a dilly bar. That's an addiction.
That does sound like an
Don't
addiction.
fuel a dilly bar addiction.
That's it. So widows and
Someone's going to
orphans.
break there.
In our church, we've got several folks who do foster care, and so again, I don't want to go real deep into this, but I think this is, if you're talking about, well, who are some of the people we need to be keeping an eye on? Those would be some folks. Questions or comments about that? Anything going on with that? All right, second one is in 1 Timothy 5:8. Again, very familiar section of Scripture here. We're going to let Reverend Zeke, who is brave, clean, and a reverend. I love that joke.
It's good.
First Timothy 5:8. Nobody else will, but.
But if anyone does not provide for his own family, especially for his own household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever.
Okay, so now, does this get really hard? Oh, boy.
Yeah.
It's one thing to take care of widows. Another thing to take care of people in your family.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes people in your family are there because of poor decision-making, whatever. Okay, so let's interact with that one a little bit here.
So I think that is very harsh, but also deserved. Because if you're not providing for your... So first of all, we're charged to take care of orphans and widows that are presumably, but not always, outside our family. But they're people in the community, in the church family that we're supposed to take care of. We're supposed to provide for those people, right? But oftentimes they're also not our actual family. You can't do that if you're not taking care of your actual family. And so not only are you kind of by default not following that other one in James about taking care of the orphans and widows, which is, according to God, true religion, right?
Right.
True religion before God the Father is this to, but you're not even taking care of your own family.
See how you just break into
really
a sermon
bad,
if
right?
you're a reverend? You had a sermon going there, Rev. You really
Right,
did.
yeah. So,
you
yeah,
preach it, I'll take the offering.
I'll just wrap
that's
this
the rule.
up. Yeah.
No, you're fine, dude. You're going good.
Yeah.
I'll wrap it up real quick here, but you can't fulfill that other commandment if you're not even taking care of your own family. Not to mention, if you're the head of your household, if you're a man who's supposed to provide for his family, there's no one else to provide for your wife and your kids. You are the person who's supposed to provide for your family, and you're not even doing that. Now, I think this doesn't quite apply to people who are unable to provide for their family because of conditions or physical issues like injuries. That's different, but I think this is definitely more talking about people who have the ability and aren't. So this is pretty harsh, but I think it's pretty well deserved.
Well, it's almost the flip side too. If you're taking care of orphans and widows, but you're not taking care of your family, then you need to get your house in order. Because the first people you should be taking care of is your own household before you even consider helping orphans and widows.
Yeah, no, it's strong language, and I think it's actually, I with a class that I took at Cedarville this past semester, we studied through both the Timothys and Titus, and this verse is one of the most blatantly strong language that Paul uses, where he's like, oh yeah, by the way, if you don't do this, you're an unbeliever. You're worse than an unbeliever if you can't do this. And it's whoa, dude, where did that come from? Rest of First Timothy is pretty chill. Not that it's not that it's
right.
Not that it's easy to do. Obviously, I mean, a lot of the qualifications for deacons and all that, but it's whoa, you're calling a man who claims to be a Christian all of a sudden not taking care of his own family. He's just not a believer if he doesn't do this. And it's okay. And it's a verse that trips a lot of people up. And honestly, this is a weird thing that I've observed about people, but some people find it easier to take care of others in their own family. And that's a very weird thing, I think. And I don't know where it comes from. It also might be a Midwest thing. So, but anyways, that's kind of the observation. But it's very, I mean, even my commentary says the strong language in this verse indicates that provision for one's household is a spiritual responsibility. So,
okay. Let's go to 1 John chapter 3, because Nick, you kind of segued into another area, a final area. 1 John 3:17. Because again, we're stepping outside of the family here. And are we back to you, Nick? Reading?
yeah, we are.
Okay.
Yep, 17 you said, right?
Yep, 3:17.
All right, 1 John 3:17. If anyone has this world's goods and sees a fellow believer in need, but withholds compassion from him, how does God's love reside in him?
Yeah, fellow believers. Take care of each other. You talk about your own personal family, but also taking care of those within the family of God as well. And again, I love our ministry and how we take care of people, and all the the meal trains that go out, and all the hospital calls, and those types of things. But again, just another area of you just kind of start thinking, well, who are some of the really who's down and out, who could really use some help. that ought to be, the church ought to be a sanctuary, a safe place for folks where they can get some help. The problem is many times people need help, but their pride gets in the way and they don't receive help. So comments on that one? That was pretty straightforward.
It's another I think it's just one of those blatant statements that the Bible makes.
Okay, who shouldn't get help? Let's go take a look at 2 Thessalonians. We're passing out money here left and right. We're giving out Chick-fil-A cards. Anybody who just comes walking by? Nope. There is a group of people. You guys know who this group is. 2 Corinthians.
2 Corinthians?
Or 2 Thessalonians. Thank you very much. Went to 2 Thessalonians 3:10. I'm in 2:10. That verse made no sense in 2:10. I'm going, who'd like to read 3:10? Kenny, you're up to you.
In fact, when we were with you, this is what we commanded you, which is what we commanded you. If anyone isn't willing to work, he should not eat.
Right. Okay. And so there's that. Now, again, that becomes hard because do you know that person who's wants that cheeseburger, and so anyway, so I think, but that, again, excuse me, it's pretty strong language. It's like, what part of that do you not understand? Okay. And I think that's part of the problem we live in today. We just live in a very entitled world. Everybody wants something for
everyone wants. Kenny, what did I tell you this morning? What did I tell you from the Age of Opportunity study? Remember what I said to you while we were standing there? Everyone wants maximum rewards with minimum effort.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, isn't it? We all want something for nothing, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
I want something for nothing.
Yeah.
You want to give me lunch for free? I don't care. Yeah, I'll take. So in essence, but if it's that mindset, it's almost like a mindset that you owe me.
Yeah. Right.
So anybody other?
I like
comments on that one.
I like the commentary down here too for
Sure.
verse 10. It says Christian charity is to be directed at true need, not artificial need created by irresponsibility.
Yeah. I was going to read the same thing if you didn't, so there you go.
So, yeah, that kind of reminds me. History class. Everyone likes talking about the idea of socialism and or communism, right? And I know that this is maybe a little bit further from the topic, right? But no one get upset at me who's listening because I haven't gone over this history in a while, right? So Plymouth Colony, I think they kind of implemented a form of socialism, communism, where everyone worked and everyone got food distribution from the fields. Issue with that is people realized they could work less. And eventually, no food was getting planted, no one was eating, and no one was doing the work. So they started to starve, actually, and they started praying about it and studying the Bible, and they came across this verse: "If anyone isn't willing to work, he should not eat." So they implemented the rule. They kind of got rid of that, gave everyone their own fields, and said, "If you're not going to work, you're not going to eat." And the colony turned around near instantly.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's circle back to Proverbs 21:13, and we will end with this.
Is it Zeke? Yeah. It's
Proverbs
Zeke.
31.
31 or
Proverbs 31.
13. Sounds like your GPS thing.
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes the guys, US 31.
Proverbs 21.
21:13. 21.
So you put 21 and 13 together and you got 13.
13. So I invented a new number, on the podcast right there.
Okay.
All of a sudden, poof. And on the 8th day, God said, "Let there be 13." And there was, and it was good. And there was night and day. As the Reverend Zeke got ready to read.
All right. 21.
I'm starting to wake up.
Yeah, I can tell.
The one who shuts his ears to the cry of the poor will himself also cry out and not be answered.
Ooh, what's that verse saying?
You better help the poor. Watch out.
Okay, why though?
Because you'll also become poor.
Okay, could
some
be shoes on the other foot sometimes. It says be really careful I just wrote down the golden rule here.
Mm-hmm.
Treat other people like you like to be treated. You may be the one who's got plenty right now. What Paul said, I've learned to be, I got plenty, I'm in need, whatever.
Contentness.
And so at some point in time, shoe might be on the other foot. Yeah, so-
I heard it put as we are blessed to bless. This was from a, I don't remember what it was from. It's a podcast I listened to at some point. Anyways,
it was the musical we did.
I thought I was about ready to say we're blessed to bless again.
Oh, yeah, you guys did do that, didn't you?
That's the Samaritan.
But
verse.
I was just listening.
Well, I
It
don't
was
wanna get
from-
copyrighted. So I
It
should
was
stop
from
saying
a podcast they were doing on the Psalms, and it's about, I think it was Psalm 37 or 38. But it's talking about how like that psalm is like, yeah, like we want like bless these people, bless this. But the guy was talking about how when you are blessed by the Lord, that blessing is not to be for you. It's actually meant to be for the people around you, the people that are in the church or in your family that need something. So
the principle of pay it forward.
yeah, exactly.
So, hey, good chat. Hope it's helpful when you get out there and think about who do you help. As always, go to the Bible and see what the Bible has to say. For Nick, Kenny,
Reverend Zeke. I don't know.
Reverend Zeke, who did take a bath before he came. He's brave,
I
clean, and a reverend. Pastor Steve, don't forget, Jesus loves you, and
So
do we.
Hey everyone, we hope you enjoyed the episode today. If you did, you should go check out the rest of our episodes on our website at ccflugnutspodcast.com.
You can also listen to us wherever you find your podcasts.
Follow us on our Facebook and Instagram pages by searching the Lugnuts Podcast Group.
Thanks for listening, and remember, Jesus loves you,
And so do we.